right now we're going to digress. And when you go to Brown Harris Stevenson, for those of you worldwide and across this nation, all you need to know is fancy real estate in New York. We're going to talk to Bess Freedman, their chief executive officer, about the real world. Bess, you've got a listing on 80th Street, and not the fancy part of 80th Street, which is 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and a kitchen I can't turn around in, and it's popping $529,000. My question to you, and this goes with all the great work that you do nationwide with Brown Harris Stevens, is do we have the income levels to afford the new real estate price you're touting?
Yeah, I mean, hi, Tom. It's so nice to see you, by the way. Listen, none of us expected that 2021 would be perform the way that it was in real estate in New York City. It came back with a vengeance, and prices have gone up. But remember, we were in a buyer's market. We've now shifted to a seller's market. So people made a lot of money during the pandemic, and things are starting to open. There's a sense of safety. We have a new administration, new mayor and governor working together, looking to mitigate crime and get our city back and working. And so I think there's a lot of good things happening in New York City. It's turned around, but as you guys were talking about and frightening me a little bit with this inflation talk, the CPI going up is, not ideal. We have less power in our money to spend, but the trees don't grow to the sky.
But Bess, this is really, really important. Is the lack of rising incomes one of the constraints on surging real estate inflation, or is that just something nobody worries about because there's so much money sloshing around?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of money sloshing around, as you put it. And prices have ticked up, but not incredibly in New York City. And so people have come back, and they're here, and they're investing, and they're changing, they're moving around. And so I don't think that's the inflation piece is not the thing that's worrying people in New York City. It's really the focus is making sure that crime is under control, that we're focusing on getting people back to work, because the market, it did not tick up so much in New York City, the prices. It's the other regions like Connecticut, Palm Beach, those markets, you saw incredible prices go up, and now the supply chain is really short. There's nothing to buy there.
It's an inventory issue, Bess, just because we are so focused on that inflation data today, given how hot it was. We're going to have to see some sort of reaction to that on the monetary side. We are expecting that the Federal Reserve is going to raise rates a number of times this year. When that translates through to higher mortgage rates, what impact is that going to have on real estate, not just here in New York City, but across the country?
Kaylee, look, rates are still historically low, and I think it's good that they increase them and they go up maybe once or twice. It will be good because it can't keep moving at this pace. This is why part of the reason why the prices have gone up. It's a contributor. And so we can't be champagne and caviar forever. Things have to slow down a little bit. And so we need supply and demand to intersect in a better way in other regions so that the market will stay fluid. But inflation, we can always, we've dealt with inflation in the past. We've dealt with rates going up. What we can't have is a paralyzed market from something like a pandemic or like we saw after 9/11. An act of terrorism. That's when markets freeze, and that's when people are scared. Inflation, we can deal with. We can manage with inflation.
Well, and obviously, it's not just about on the monetary side. There's the fiscal side of the equation, and there's a great debate about how that has contributed to the inflation we are seeing. But Bess, on the fiscal side, a lot of what we thought might come to fruition under the Biden administration, differences, potentially a change in the SALT cap, have not. What is the impact of that when you're thinking specifically of this tri-state area?
I mean, they're still discussing that. We'd like to see that increase from $10,000. I think they said $80,000, which would be helpful. The good news, Kaylee, is that we have a new city council. We have a new speaker, Adrienne Adams, who is much more moderate. And we're hoping that the legislation in Albany is going to be much more reasonable economically so that we don't drive people out of the city. So I think we want to create sort of tax policy, as I always say, that's steeped in economics, and that we work to create an environment that keep people here. We need rich people here. We don't want to drive them out. We want them to be here. It's important for the city.